Thank you. Thank you very much, Victor and Zubeida, for setting the tempo of this year's retreat. You've spoken like elders, and Victor, I wanted you to continue because the trajectory is personal. It speaks to us, and it picks up from where Zubeida left. But colleagues, as we start this annual retreat, let me first of all start by salutations, by recognizing the Kenya Editors Guild under the stewardship of the President, Zubeida, the CEO, Leader Batch. I hope that is a correct pronunciation. My brother, Acting CEO, I'll communicate to Omoyo. I'll tell him there is no vacant void in the space. Members of the Kenya Editors Guild present here, the staff of the Media Council as well, distinguished journalists, colleagues from the Retirement Benefits Authority. Allow me once again to say good morning and honestly welcome you all warmly to this retreat. I didn't introduce myself when we did this, but my name is Charles Machira, CEO of the RBA. It is an honor to stand before the storytellers of our nation. It is indeed, because you are the gatekeepers of the narrative. You are also here as mentors of the young team that has joined us today. And I'm also aware that we have rising stars in the Kenya journalism space. So allow me to extend my sincere gratitude to the leadership of Kenya Editors Guild, KEG. Mary, I think when you spoke or introduced yourself, you said keg. Before I found my way, I was very worried because keg was, I was associated with keg before I found my true path. So Zubeida, which you don't use that word because you remind us the bad old days. Maybe we should just say KEG so that we don't stimulate some of us who have been there before. But please allow me also to recognize the leadership of the Media Council of Kenya for partnering with us and for making this workshop possible. I really want to appreciate all of you because when we did the introductions, I had the face of Kenya. I had diversity in terms of media representation. And it's an honor when we speak to such a forum, which is an empowerment forum as well, both personally and for the agenda on financial journalism and the space of pension funds. But I'm greatly gratified that you have made this possible. And please, Kenya Editors Guild and Media Council of Kenya, we say thank you. This retreat is, of course, not just another event. It's part of our growing strategic partnership. Earlier this year, we met with the Kenya Editors Guild members in Nairobi, and we agreed on the need to have a structured follow-up, which today, that commitment has brought us here to Naivasha. But I'm very sure this is, we are on a first engagement. I hope one of the outcomes of this retreat is how what has been spoken to by the two seniors today about the pride and the well-being of a journalist becomes central to our discourse and our discussions going forward. I was asking my colleague Jackson, who is seated next to me, when the question was asked, how many of us are saving? How many of us are in a pension scheme? How many of us are in any saving arrangement? And the story continued. I could just see the hearts were very frail, even for those who picked them up. And the question is, there is a challenge. There is a problem somewhere. And collectively, we cannot sit here just to do financial literacy and empowerment and speak about and worry about the challenges of the past if you're not going to take today as a reckoning day to redefine our future. And I'm not very sure because I know we have many media houses today. I know a few have retirement benefit arrangements registered with the authority. But the question is, why can't we bring all these people together? Is there any space within the Media Council of Kenya? I know you have a staff retirement benefit scheme. Is it something that we can think with the Kenya Editors Guild and the other stakeholders in this space? Maybe because Media Council of Kenya is an entity that all journalists also resonate with, the Kenya Editors Guild. What can we fight? Can we get a partnership? Even if it's an individual pension plan, or even within the Media Council of Kenya staff pension scheme, you can execute a deed of adherence. And I am double sure my colleague Anthony is here, Jackson is here, and they will speak to some of this subject matter. But let's take today as a day of walking to the next path, because I'm very sure, even without compulsion, even with lobbying, the space that you hold and the positions that you hold, we can be able to influence a decision to compel all these media houses to come to this agenda. I recognize our collaboration with the Media Council of Kenya. It spans now for more than 4 years. Together we have sensitized journalists across the Republic of Kenya, in every province. I know we have been to Kilifi, Garissa, Nyeri, Machakos, Uasin Gishu. Here we are today, Nairobi, Kisumu, and the story continues. And again, our commitment is it will not end here, because we are determined to move this awareness, to deep dive and mentor the journalists to make a contribution to both themselves as individuals, but also to educate the Kenyan public. And that's why it's very critical today to speak to the question of how do we secure the storyteller's future. It is, and our theme is on securing the storyteller's future through empowering media personalities for impactful, and I want to underline the word impactful, pension journalism. The basis of giving the story, but also personal empowerment. This theme reflects a simple truth, that you cannot guide the public on financial security if yourself, you're financially insecure. And I think, Zubeida, thank you for the session you had in the morning to ask us where we are, because if we are not financially secure, how competent or how confident are we when we light into this space? Many years ago, I was told, if you don't own a cow in the village, you have no business sitting with the elders when they are discussing about cattle dip issues. I don't know, you have heard that. I wish I can put it in my mother tongue, but it is almost derogatory to the effect that you are not supposed to even to be in the neighborhood when wazes or the elders are speaking. And therefore the invitation is, there's a personal commitment, there's a personal initiative, even as we write, and collectively we should find some space to broaden this theme. Turning to the Kenyan pension sector and where we are today, as at December 2025, the assets under management grossed over 2.81 trillion Kenyan shillings. If you relate that with the annual budget, it will tell you the story. For those who are economists, if you look at it from a GDP contribution, It is 16% of our GDP. If you look at the growth in this sector, last year alone, the pension industry grew by more than 700 billion Kenya shillings in 1 year. And the average return, the average growth during the year was 25% of the year. And I know I'm also speaking to people who are trustees in various schemes. There could be few because of the earlier session that we had. But I can assure you that majority of the pension funds in Kenya last year declared a return which was a double digit, including the National Social Security Fund, which gave a return of 17%. No bank has given that sort of return in the history of Kenya. So there is growth in this space. It is good to speak about the assets under management and the growth space, but even individually, when your savings grow by 17%, if you're in NSSF or any other scheme. I belong to a scheme where the return was 24%. My colleagues are here. I don't know, Bonabule, what was the return in your scheme, but I know all pension funds gave a return which was a double digit. And the question therefore is, when we speak about these numbers and the impact they have, what is the position of the Kenyan generalists today? Why are you losing out on the investment space? What should we do? And I think that is an invitation that we need to have in this forum. That does not mean that we don't have challenges. Of course we do. And this is now where the bigger space comes in. The proportion of Kenyans saving for retirement today in the labor force is 26.5%. And this is real data, 26.5%. If you put it the other way around, 75% of Kenyans are not saving for retirement. And unfortunately, you find the journalists are contributors in that space of 70% plus of people who do not have a saving agenda to secure their lives when they are economically inactive. And I'm glad, Bonambile, you have said this. It will come to a point, once a journalist, always a journalist. There's nothing like former journalists. I heard you very well. But there's a time when it comes and you feel that you're not, you want to do something else. If you don't have income security at that point, what happens? When you cannot be able to generate a story, to speak and to relate, or the microphone for that matter. So we have a challenge of bringing 74% of the labor force, 18 million, 19 million people to this space. The same can be said, and I think it was alluded to earlier on, that we also have a challenge of employers who do not limit contributions. The amount, even as we speak about the big numbers, we now have about 68 billion worth of contributions that have not been limited by pension funds. To pension funds, by employers. We may call them log employers without mentioning name. But if you look at it from the bigger universities, if you look at that space within the county governments, you'll find the answer. 90% of that number where it comes within that space. But that is our responsibility, and I'm glad my colleague Jackson is here and he will speak to this, because we must also address the question of non-remittance of contributions and punish and penalize employers who are not in this space. I have to confess and say that we are now strengthening the law. This year, we have made amendments, proposals to amend the law to penalize and punish employers who do not limit contributions in this space. So that then when people make contributions and they earn returns, one can go home with dignity, with an income which is commensurate or related to their earnings when they were working in the various media houses. I'm aware that within the media industry, volatility is real. As freelance journalism, we have digital content creation, shifting newsrooms structures, which often leave many of you from the structured employer-sponsored retirement benefits arrangements. But as I said, this is a clarion call today. We must face it, and I hope that by the time we finish this retreat tomorrow, we will have, and Ratemo, I'm not a politician, but it is good to say that we must have an initiative between ourselves, Kenya Editors Guild, and the Media Council of Kenya to escalate this engagement further, particularly to cater, to bring forth those who are excluded from this space. And we will work on that journey, whatever resources that we may require to spend to ensure that this happens. It's our commitment that we will walk that journey. We seek for your partnership where you are required to make a contribution. We seek for joint efforts on all of us, but I think definitely, Latemo, you can give the testimony. I know you have been in RBA for some time now. Don't disclose where you are. I saw you attempted that alone to say how much you have in your scheme, but I think it's a good story because 2.8 trillion Kenyan shillings is owned by 4 million workers. That is the truth of the matter. 2.8 trillion Kenyan shillings, if you look at that number, belongs to 4 million active players in this place. So what happens? Why are we excluding others? And why aren't we compelling everybody to be in this space? But let's also be clear. Our intent, and that is why we are here, one of the reasons why we are here, is to ensure that no journalist who has spent a career fighting for accountability, and I know this is in your space, should retire in poverty. Why can't we also call the employers or the beneficiaries of the stories that we write to be more accountable as you call everybody else to be accountable? Every Kenyan journalist, in my view, even as we call on the employer, also has a responsibility to save. And there is no big money for you to start saving. It is a habit, and how you start and how it grows that will secure that latter life. Colleagues, your responsibility also goes beyond your own future. As a journalist, you are educators of the nation. You shape the narrative, for sure. You influence public opinion and guide workers across Kenya. And that's why, even as we speak about our personal growth, we also need to bring the bigger population in this space. And we seek for your support in this agenda, so that when you embrace pension savings personally, you definitely gain the authority to educate others, be they teachers, artisans, farmers, border riders, and any other professional who is outside this space on why saving through pension fund is essential. We would like everybody to be part of the cake. And I can assure you, because the financial year is ending next week on Tuesday, we will be releasing statistics as to where we are. But even this year, the growth is still a double-digit growth. And for sure, the assets under management in the pension industry will cross over to the 3 trillion mark next week for sure. May I say that RBA is here to support you, and your personal growth and personal empowerment in this space will also serve as a catalyst towards professional excellence from where we sit. When you experience the peace of mind because you have a retirement saving, of course your life transforms, and your reporting also transforms from just dealing with the statistics, but also being human-centric to the storytelling of what you know on the gains of saving for retirement. To the mentorship program, which we have the team of mentees in this forum, it bridges the technical pension data with everyday realities, making pensions relatable to Mama Boga, and that is our desire, the Juakari artisans, and every Kenyan in this, in the labor force. So in closing, and our commitment to our mentees, we request that you seize this opportunity to sharpen your pens and broaden your perspectives. To our editors who are present with us here today, thank you for mentoring the next generation of financial journalists and business journalists. As RBA, we commit to remain open, transparent, and supportive, providing the data and insights that you may require or you may need to report accurately and meaningfully. And when the next time we meet, and I believe we will meet within the next 6 months, because this journey must continue. May I request that we put something on the table on the journey of financial empowerment of the Kenyan journalist. The requirement under the law is that anybody saving in a retirement benefit scheme should access their money within 30 days from the date they apply to be paid. So even if 60 days was an omission, it should be within 30 days. But sometimes you'll find maybe the documentation was not complete or there are some processes and that kind of stuff. But ordinarily, payment of benefits, and it is in law, must be paid within 30 days. I will come to the civil service pension scheme because I'm very sure I'll be lying if I don't speak to it and the 30 days. The second question, the first question was on NSSF, and thank you, Madam. I think she has stepped out. Our savings safe at the NSSF? I wish to respond to that question in 3 ways. Number one, NSSF is one of the pension funds that is regulated by the Retirement Benefits Authority. Okay? Number two, I think when she asked the question, the concern was, isn't our money being lent to the government too much? For sure, NSSF has invested in projects where the government is a promoter of those projects. But it is not lending. Unajua lending in Kiswahili ni kukopa ama kupewa. No. We regulate all investments that are done by pension funds in Kenya. And I believe, Monica, when you make the presentation, and Salome, I'm very sure you'll be able to read out where the 2.8 trillion Kenya shillings is invested currently. And within that, you'll never see any asset class or any area where the government of Kenya has been lent money. But you know what? By the way, when you invest in government securities, you are literally lending to government. Government borrows from the market. But having said that, is the money safe? Absolutely yes. And I will not start here to give you a contradictory story. NSSF, as I said, is one of the schemes which must comply with the provisions of the Retirement Benefits Act. When I spoke about the returns, please, we are here and I can see some of you have laptops. Just log into NSSF website. If you don't find the current financial statements and the disclosures in those financial statements, we are here to respond to any queries. I spoke and I said they gave a return of 17% in the last financial year. And the previous year, it was 11%. And that's my concern because, if from a compounding, you go back to school, you remember the compounding effect. That you earn 11% this year, 17%, and it keeps on growing. So, strictly speaking, NSSF, from where I sit, it has been on a journey of good corporate governance, improvement on that space. It's not where we were before at all. But sometimes our historical prejudices bear on us. But I want to give you comfort when I speak to you. And I know you speak with the power of the pen, the power of the microphone, that NSSF is absolutely viable in what they are doing. In fact, I should say they are outperforming some of the schemes that we have licensed. But because my colleagues will speak about these issues, they will give you where we are. The second issue, I will make sure, even if it means us getting a virtual intervention, to prove to you that even today, you can query how much you have in NSSF. If I'm not wrong, they have a USSD, *303 hash. If you go through that, it will end up giving you. And perhaps, Kizito, you may confirm. But if that is required, we can easily call the NSSF and have a 10-15 minutes intervention to show how you can be able to access your current balance, taking cognizance of even the declaration of 17% which was declared this year. So yes, and then surprise to most of the service providers. Jackson, should I maybe request you when you come on the podium to say what we are calling on all pension funds to have in terms of automation so that each and every member on a monthly basis you can be able to relate with your balances. And perhaps you'll also discuss the question as to a member is able to track when employers are limiting contributions. Allow me to take the final one, then I allow my colleagues to anchor the other questions. The story of delay of pensions from the civil service pension scheme, where we have our teachers, our disciplined forces, and basically the public sector who are in the civil service pension scheme. We call it the scheme established under CAP 489. That scheme is actually exempt from the Retirement Benefits Act under Section 32, if I'm not wrong. Anthony will correct me. It says all schemes will comply, exempt a scheme funded out of the consolidated fund. And that's the only scheme which is exempt to start with. That's number one. Number two, that scheme is funded from tax revenues. There is no civil servant who is a member of the civil service pension scheme, the defined benefit scheme. And I will not go to the intricacies. The old scheme, the scheme which was there prior to 2022, it's non-contributory. No civil servants makes a contribution to that scheme. So any pension that is paid is driven from our taxes. And that was a problem. Are there delays? Definitely there are some delays. There are delays beyond 30 days. But I want to say this without any fear of any contradiction, that the Director of Pensions at the National Treasury, when files are submitted to the National Treasury, pensions are paid within 90 days. And I want to repeat that, and I want to underline it. Paid within 90 days. But I'm very sure that the journey of the file moving from TSC to National Treasury or from any ministry takes longer than that period. And please trust me, because this is a true story. So what is happening in this space? I think because that was a subsidiary question. Number one, and this is very critical, in the year 2022, we commenced a new scheme. It's called the Public Service Superannuation Fund, which supersedes the non-funded retirement benefit arrangement. And it allowed for any civil servant who was below 45 years was compelled to go to the Public Service Superannuation Fund, PSSF. You can also go to the website of PSSF. You can see where they are today. A scheme of 4 years today has accumulated 330 billion Kenya shillings in 4 years for civil servants. So what am I saying? We lost the opportunity many years ago to compel civil servants to contribute for their savings. And we need actually to recognize the government of the day, because even the civil servants' contributions, and Jackson, you can share the data, among the contributions which are unlimited, the civil service, the government limits contributions on monthly basis. And even where there's a delay, it's not for more than 3 months. And that is a material fact. It is in the financial statements of PSSF. So civil servants, in my view, 2022, add another 15 years, maybe now 11 years, this story of people retiring and waiting to be paid would be a story of the past. But even that old scheme, I want to believe we are in the space where you know that the government has launched, I think last week, was it last week or this week, the CS for public service, CS local, compelling all public service to move into a centralized HR system where all payrolls are administered and can be monitored. In that system, it's compelling every employer to communicate digitally by email and by text 9 months prior to the date of retirement, that your date of retirement is this, your file has been processed, this is where we are, and you are working on this journey. So by the time you are leaving retirement date, because the problem is records, and please hear me, the problem we have is files don't move from the ministries or from, I think, teachers, because most of the people, and I also assist, most of the people who complain are teachers. The file takes forever to move from the Teacher Service Commission to the National Treasury. So I want to take forward on that perhaps they can do better. The scheme is not funded, but collectively, the initiatives have been put in. And I want to believe that by the end of, because this is compulsory from 1st of July, that story, if we ask ourselves in 6 months' time, please ask me, because we will meet again and we must be accountable for the stories that we share and the information that we share with you. But for NSSF, it is 30 days, unless you have gaps in your records. But if there are no gaps, if the employer gave your details and limited contributions within 30 days. And before I leave here, I think it is *303#. You should be able to access and know what is your current contributions. So once again, before I exit the floor, because my colleagues are here to take all the other simple questions, NSSF is a robust retirement benefits arrangement, giving returns on a double-digit basis. And please hear me, because, Madam, you have walked in when I had already responded to the question. It is not that they are reading. No. They are investments decision, and the investments that are yielding double digits, so to speak. And even this one of the civil service, maybe I should leave and say, even the civil service pension scheme, the PSSF, the return last year, it is also in the website, it's public knowledge. 18% return, I think 18.9 to be precise, 19%. That's like growing your funds by 1/5, so to speak. Let me add there, I invite Jackson. Please, Jackson, respond to the question on employers who do not remit contributions and what we are doing. There's that personal responsibility. It starts with you, even where you excluded today. Asanteni sana. Jackson, please, karibu.